Hello everyone, today in this video I am going to deal with the 5th chapter of Moments of class 9th. The title of the chapter is The Happy Prince, written by Oscar Wilde. So this is a story of a statue and a bird, and the name of a statue is Happy Prince. So now this prince is covered with gold. He had sapphire and has ruby in his sword. So his whole body was cladded with different metals, but he, with the help of a swallow, a bird which came to take rest on his statue, he gave all those metals, the precious metal which was over his body, to the needy person to whom he was seeing standing there in the middle of the town. So let's see what's there in the story and how he did it and why he did it. High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had two big bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt. So the whole body is covered with gold, the leaves of gold. His eyes have got sapphire, and there was a red ruby on the hilt of his sword, and he is standing high above on a tall column. Here you can see in this picture he is standing on the tall column, and it is raised on a very high platform. One night there flew over the city a little swallow. His friend had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before, but he had stayed behind. Then he decided to go to Egypt too. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city. Where shall I put up? He said. I hope the town has made preparation. Then he saw the statue on the tall column. So one day there was a little swallow. His all other friends has gone to Egypt. They have migrated to Egypt 6 weeks before, but this little swallow was left all alone, and therefore now he was also flying to Egypt. So he flew for whole day, and at night he reached, that little bird reached to this town. There he was looking for any place to take rest in night. So he came to the statue which was standing on the tall column, the statue of Happy Prince. I will put up there, he cried. It is a fine position with plenty of fresh air. So he alighted just between the feet of Happy Prince. I have a golden bedroom, he said softly to himself as he looked round, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting up his head under his wings, a large drop of water fell on him. What a curious thing, he cried. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining. Then another drop fell. What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? He said. I must look for a good chimney pot, and he determined to fly away. So while the bird was flying over the sky in that city, looking for a place to take shelter for that night, at that time only he saw that tall statue, the statue of Happy Prince, and he decided that he will take rest there on the statue of Happy Prince only, and therefore he alighted. It means he came down and he landed between the feet of Happy Prince. So he sat there, and then he realized that he was going to have a golden bedroom for that night, because that Happy Prince had whole body made up of gold. So now when he was preparing to go to sleep, suddenly a drop of water, a last drop of water fell over him. He was surprised that from where that water drops has come. So he looked up in the sky, but the sky was clear, there was no sign of cloud in the sky, and therefore he thought that from where that drops of water is coming. Because it was not raining, even there was no cloud in the sky, therefore he became curious, and while he was looking at the sky only, then again another drop fell. And then he thought that this statue is not good for him to take rest for that night, because that statue can't protect him from the rain, from the water which was falling upon him. So now he thought that he will have to look for another place to hide himself. So now he was ready to leave that place, that statue, in order to find a new location, new place to take rest that night. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw, what did he see? So then the moment when he was preparing to fly, when he was opening his wings, then at that moment only another drop fell, and then he looked up, and then he saw something which was quite surprising to him. Now let's see what was surprising, what he saw. The eyes of Happy Prince was filled with tears, and the tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity. Who are you? He said. I am the Happy Prince. Why are you weeping then? Asked the swallow. You have quite drenched me. When I was alive and had a human heart, answered the statue, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and happy indeed I was. So I lived, and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here with they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness and all misery of my city, and though my heart is made up of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. So he says, then what happened? To the surprise of swallow, when he saw up, he saw that the statue of Happy Prince was weeping. He saw that there was tears in the eye of Happy Prince. He was surprised, and that golden statue was looking very beautiful in that moonlight. He went up and he asked to the statue that, who are you? Then the statue replied that I am a Happy Prince, and he asked then why you are crying, why you are weeping. You have drenched me, it means you have your drops, the tears which had fallen on me has made me wet. So the bird asked, if you are Happy Prince, it means you are supposed to be happy, then why you are weeping? Then he narrated his story that when I was alive, when he was alive, he had human heart, he said, and he lived in a palace where there was no sorrow. He had never seen sorrow, he has never experienced sorrow in his life. He lived in the palace happily and even died happily. And then he says that when I am dead now, I have been set so high. It means the stand where he stands today, the platform which has been raised for that statue is so high that from there, standing up there on that platform, he can see the whole city. And now he is out of the palace, he is seeing the ugly face of that city. He is able to see all misery, sorrow, unhappiness, difficulties, different challenges which the people have to face. But when he was alive, he never witnessed all these things. He witnessed only happiness all around him. He never had to witness any hard or rough feeling, that is any sorrow. He has never witnessed unhappiness. He was happy all the time. What Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remark. Far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice, far away in Little Street there is a poor house. One of the windows is open. Through it I can see woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands all pricked by needle, for she is a seamstress. She is embroidering flowers on a stained gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor to wear the next court ball. In a bed in corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking his mother to give him oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal and I cannot move. I am waited for in Egypt, said Swallow. My friends are flying up and down the Nile, and talking to the large lotus flowers. Soon they will go to sleep. So now the little swallow and this happy prince were talking to each other. They were in conversation. Then that happy prince said that standing there on the pedestal is the high raised platform on which that the statue has been laid on which the statue is standing. He says that standing here on this pedestal I can see that far away there is a house, one window is open, and through that window I can see that there is a seamstress. Seamstress is the lady, tailor you can say, who prepared dresses. So he says that that lady is quite thin and worn. She is totally tired. She has coarse and red hand, all pricked by needles. So her hand is totally pricked by needles. She is embroidering flowers on the stained gown of the loveliest queen's maid. And in that bedroom only, the room where this seamstress is working, where she is embroidering the flowers on the gown, in the same very room, there is a little boy who is son of that seamstress. He is suffering from fever. He have very high fever and he is asking for oranges. But his mother could not give him anything except the river water, and therefore he is crying. And therefore what he requested, he said that, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? So he requested the swallow that please take out the ruby which is there on my sword hilt and please give it to her. As he cannot move, his feet is tied up. It has been fastened on that pedestal. Then that swallow said that I am going to Egypt. My friend has already flown over there. They had already migrated. They might be enjoying the river Nile and they would be playing with lotus flower. They would be enjoying the beauty of that river Nile. But he is still there. He have to go there. The prince asked the swallow to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. The boy is so thirsty and the mother so sad. He said, I don't think I like boys, answered the swallow. I want to go to Egypt. But the happy prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry. It is very cold here, he said, but he agreed to stay with him for one night and be his messenger. Thank you, little swallow, said the prince. The swallow picked out the great ruby from the prince's swords and flew away with it in his beak over the roof of the town. He passed by Cathedral Tower where the white marble engines were sculptured. He passed by the palace and heard the sound of dancing. A beautiful girl came out on his balcony with his lover. So now the swallow was determined to fly to Egypt, while at the same time that happy prince was making request to that swallow, that bird, that little bird, to stay with him for one night so that he can help that lady, the seamstress, who is totally tired and his son is suffering from fever. He made repetitive request to swallow, and after that swallow even he agreed that okay, I will stay here for one night. And then what he did, he took the ruby which was there on the prince's sword, and with it in his beak he flew over the town in order to give that ruby to that lady, that seamstress, who was lying in her room. I hope my dress will be ready in the time for the state ball. She said, I have ordered flowers to be embroidered on it, but the seamstresses are so late. So while the bird was flying through the town, she saw various things. She saw that bird saw cathedral. The bird saw cathedral tower, and then it saw that a beautiful girl came out with his lover in the balcony, and the bird heard the conversation of that beautiful girl and his boyfriend. So the girl was saying to his boyfriend that she hoped that her dress would be ready for the next state ball, and she complained that she has given her gown, her dress for embroidering, but she says that the seamstress was so lazy and therefore she is taking a lot of time. But here the things is totally different. They are partying there and they are preparing for their next party. But here the seamstress, this lady who has been assigned the job of embroidering flowers on the gown of that beautiful girl, this lady is totally worn out, she is totally tired, she don't have anything to feed his son, she has not eaten anything, and her son is suffering from fever. So they are totally unaware with her situation, they are thinking about themselves only. He passed over the river and saw the lantern hanging on the mast of the ship. At last he came to the poor woman's house and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. How cool I feel, said the boy, I must be getting better. And he sank into delicious slumber. So now the bird, he was flying with ruby in his beak. Finally the bird reached the house of that seamstress. She went into the room. That bird went into the room and it placed the ruby near that seamstress. She was totally tired and she had fallen asleep on the table where she was working. And the boy was lying on the bed and he was tossing with fever. He had very high fever. So after placing ruby on the table, the bird, while leaving the room, he fanned the boy with his wings. He fanned the boy, and as a result, the wind which it produced, the boy felt little colder, and then he said that perhaps I am getting better now. And then again he went to sleep. Then again he fell asleep. Then the swallow flew back to Happy Prince and told him what he had done. It is curious, he remarked, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold. So the little swallow was in a hurry to fly to Egypt because in the town there was cold now and they can't resist the cold, and therefore they were flying to some of the place where there will be no cold at that time. So when he has accomplished this job given by Happy Prince, the bird said to Happy Prince that it is quite surprising that it's too cold over here, but I can't feel the cold. I am feeling warmth. I feel warmth today. Then the Happy Prince replied, that is because you have done a good action, said the prince, and the little swallow began to think and then fell asleep. Thinking always made him sleepy. So the prince commented that you are feeling warmth, you feel warm because you have done a good action today. You have helped someone and this is why you are feeling warm today. So the little swallow, he started thinking about the comment which the Happy Prince had made, and while thinking, the swallow fell asleep. When day broke, he flew down the river and had a bath. Tonight I go to Egypt, said the swallow, and he was in high spirit at the prospect. He visited all the monuments and sat a long time on the top of the church steeple. When the moon rose, he flew back to Happy Prince. Have you any commission for Egypt? He cried. I am just starting. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you stay with me one night longer? I am awaited for in Egypt, answered the swallow. So once now the swallow had accomplished the work, he has done a favor to that prince. He has accomplished the work assigned by prince, and now the next day what he did, he was preparing to fly tonight, and therefore as he was going to fly the same night, therefore what he did, he thought to roam around the monuments of that city. So he went everywhere, and when sun was about to set, when it was evening, he flew back to Happy Prince, and then he said that I am going to fly to Egypt. If you have any work for me, if you want to assign me any work for Egypt, then tell me, I will help you out. So when the Happy Prince heard this, then he said that again he made a request that wait with me for one more night. Then again the swallow made the same request that I want to go to Egypt. I will have to reach there in Egypt because all of my other friends, all of other birds have already been there. I am the only one who is left here. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, far away across the city I see a young man in garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers, and in the glass by his side there is a bunch of withered violet. His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate. And he has large and dreamy eyes. He is trying to finish a play for director of the theatre, but he is too cold to write anymore. There is no fire in the grate, and the hunger has made him faint. So now the Happy Prince, he again saw another person. He saw a young man who was a writer, who used to write a play for the director of theatre. So that young man, he was in his room, he was feeling cold, he had nothing to eat, he was quite hungry, and there was no fire, and therefore he was quite cold, and due to which he was not able to finish his play. He was suffering, he was feeling hungry, he was feeling cold, and due to which he was not able to complete that play which he was writing, and out of hunger and out of cold he is faint now. So he made another request that please help me out to help that young man, that young boy. So for this he requested swallow to wait for one night longer. So let's see whether he agreed or not. Then the swallow said, I will wait with you one night longer, said the swallow, who really had a good heart. He asked if he should take another ruby to the young playwright. Alas, I have no ruby now, said the prince, my eyes are all that I have left. They are made up of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India thousands of years ago. He ordered the swallow to pluck out one of them and take it to the playwright. He will sell it to the jeweler and buy firewood and finish his play, he said. So now the swallow asked to prince that now what I have to do? Okay, I will wait for you for one night longer. So what I have to do? What is your order? Shall I took another ruby? Then he said that no, I am left with no ruby. Pluck one of my eyes, which is made up of rare sapphires, which is quite precious, which were brought from India thousands of years ago. So pluck one eyes and take it to that young playwright. He will sell it to any jeweler and he will receive a large amount of money from that, and from that money he can buy firewood for himself and he can finish the play which he is writing. Dear prince, said swallow, I cannot do that. And he began to weep. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. So the swallow plucked out prince's eyes and he flew to the young man's garret. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. Through this he darted and came into the room. The young man had his head buried in his hand, so he did not hear the flutter of birds' wings, and when he looked up he found beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violet. I am beginning to be appreciated, he cried. This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play, and he looked quite happy. So the bird, first of all, he pleaded, he started weeping because the happy prince has asked him to take out one of his eyes, which is quite painful. He started weeping and he said that I can't do this. I can't pluck your eyes. But then the happy prince gave him a command and he said that it's my command, do as I direct you. So at last he took the eyes, he plucked one of the eyes of happy prince and he flew to that young man, to that playwright. So there was a hole in the roof, and through that hole he was easily able to get into the garret. And there what he did, the man, that young playwright, he was lying on the table with his head down. He had buried his head in his hand. It means his face was hiding in his hand. Yes. And what he did, and therefore as his head was buried in the hand, and therefore that young man, that young playwright was not able to notice the entrance of the bird, and bird, without being noticed, he placed that gems which he has brought with him. He has brought a sapphire which was there in the eye of prince. So he placed that sapphire on the table where that young playwright was writing. So when the young playwright woke up, he saw that sapphire on the table, and he thought that some of his admirer, some of his fan had gifted him that sapphire. He thought that now his play is being appreciated by the people, and therefore someone has gifted him, and therefore he grew happy, and then he thought that now I can finish my another play. The next day the swallow flew down the harbour. He sat on the mast of the large vessel and watched the sailor working. I am going to Egypt, cried the swallow, but nobody minded. When the moon rose, he flew back to Happy Prince. So again next morning the bird went to see the town, and today the bird went to a harbour, and there he was sitting on the mast of the vessel, and he was quite happy because tonight he was going to fly to Egypt. So he cried, but no one, he shouted out of happiness that he is going to fly to Egypt tonight, but no one heard him. And at the time of evening, again he went back to Happy Prince. So now let's see whether he goes to Egypt or not, or he is assigned another job by Happy Prince. I have come to bid you goodbye, he cried. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, will you not stay with me one night longer? So again that Happy Prince made another request, and he asked him to stay with him for one more night. Then let's see what the bird said. It is winter, answered the swallow, and the snow will soon be here. In Egypt, the sun is warm on the green palm trees, and the crocodile lies in the mud and look lazily about them. In the square below, said the prince, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter, and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and she is crying. She has no shoes or stockings, and her little head is bare. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her, and her father will not beat her. So now, when Happy Prince made request to swallow to wait for one more night, then he said that no, I can't wait any longer. It's getting winter day by day, and it will start snowing, and therefore I can't wait any longer. Then the Happy Prince narrated another incident to that swallow, that there is a match girl, the girl who sells match. He says that girl, the match of that girl has fallen in the gutter, in the drainage, and due to which all the matches which she had are spoiled now. And she is crying. She is barefoot. She don't have shoes or stockings in her feet, and her head is bare. So he said that if that girl will not earn some money, or if she will not give some money to his father when she will return back to her home, her father will beat her. And therefore she is crying, as he has spoiled all the match which she had. And therefore please wait for me, live with me for one night longer, and please take my another eyes and give it to that girl, so that she will give that eyes to her father, and she will not be beaten by her father. I will stay with you one night longer, said the swallow, but I cannot pluck out your eye. You would be quite blind then. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, said the prince, do as I command you. So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it. He swept past the match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. What a lovely bit of glass, cried the little girl, and she ran home laughing. Then the swallow came back to Prince. You are blind now, he said, so I will stay with you always. No, little swallow, said the poor prince, you must go to Egypt. Now I will stay with you always, said the swallow, and slept at the prince's feet. All the next day he sat on Prince's shoulder and told him stories of what he had seen in the strange land. So this Happy Prince, he was quite generous, and when he saw the condition of that match girl, he was not able to control his emotion, and he tried to help her with his another eyes. And he commanded the swallow to pluck the another eye which was left, which is made up of sapphire, and then he said that go and give that eye to that girl. The swallows grew emotional, and he said that I can't do that, because if I will take you the another eyes, if I will take your another eye, you will become blind. Then again the Happy Prince said that it's my command, I request you to do so. So the little bird plucked his eyes, and he went with that sapphire in his beak, and he slipped that jewel in the palm, in the hand of that girl. So as soon as that girl saw that bit of glass, she called it a bit of glass because she was a little girl, she was not able to identify that jewels. But she became happy and she ran to her home happily. And then the bird returned back to Happy Prince. And then he said that, now I will not leave to Egypt, now I will not leave you alone because you are blind now. I will stay with you only. Then the prince pleaded, requested him to go to Egypt, but the bird did not move. The bird left his plan of going to Egypt, and the bird now finally he said that no, he is going to leave here with him only. So next day, what he did, he sat on the prince's shoulder and told him the stories of what he had seen in strange land. So next day, he did not go anywhere to see the town, but he sat on the shoulder of the prince and he started narrating different stories which he has witnessed while flying to one and another cities. Dear little swallow, said the prince, you tell me the marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of man and woman. There is no mystery so great as misery. Fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there. So as the swallow was narrating different stories to the happy prince, he said that nothing is as marvelous as misery, as sorrow in this world. And therefore what he did, he requested the swallow to fly throughout the city every day, and he asked him to please narrate me whatever thing you witness, whatever you see throughout the city. So the swallow flew over the great city and saw rich making merry in their beautiful houses while the beggar are sitting at the gate. He flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge, two little boys were lying in each other's arms to try and keep themselves warm. How hungry we are, they said. You must not lie here, shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into rain. So as the bird was commanded by the happy prince that he will roam, he was given a task to roam around the city and to see the suffering of the people and to narrate it to happy prince. So as per the command of happy prince, the bird flew over the great city and he saw the sufferings of people. He saw that the rich men were happy, they were partying, they were happy, while the poor people were suffering from cold, they don't even have food to eat. And then he saw that there were two boys. Both of them were lying in the arms of each other so that they can keep warm themselves. They don't have warm clothes and they were lying under the bridge. And when they were lying under the bridge, the watchman came and the watchman asked the boy to leave that place. He shouted at him, at that boy, and the watchman asked them to leave that place. And then again, they left that place, that shelter, the bridge, and they were out again in the rain. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. I am covered with fine gold, said the prince. You must take it off leaf by leaf and give it to the poor. The living always think that gold can make them happy. Leaf after leaf of fine gold the swallow picked off until the happy prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's face grew rosier, and they laughed and played in the street. Who have bread now, they cried. We have bread now, they cried. So the bird, the swallow, he returned back to happy prince and he narrated the story of the small children whom they have seen, who were without shelter, who were without food, who were without clothes. He narrated the story of those boys, those children, to Happy Prince, and then he said to Swallow that, "Dear Swallow, my body is covered with leaf of gold. Please take that leaf layer by layer and give it to those children." So again that Swallow followed the command of Happy Prince and he distributed the leaf of gold layer by layer among the poor children. And the poor children, when they received that gold, they became happy. They were now laughing, they were now playing, they became active, and they shouted that now we have bread now. It means they had got something to eat. Earlier they were out of bread. They don't have anything to eat. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. The streets looked as if they were made of silver. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on ice. So now the winter season approached, and now it started snowing. The streets were full of snow. It seems that it is made up of silver. The white color of snow is being compared to silver over here, and everybody now started wearing winter clothes, and the children used to skate on the ice. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. But at last he knew that he was going to die. He had not just enough strength to fly up to Prince's shoulder once more. "Goodbye, dear Prince," he murmured. "Will you let me kiss your hand?" "I am glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little swallow," said the prince. "You have stayed too longer here, but you must kiss me on the lips, for I love you." "It is not the Egypt that I am going," said the swallow. I am going to the house of death. Death is the brother of sleep, is he not?" So now the swallow was getting colder and colder as the winter grew nearer, and it started snowing, and therefore as a result what happened? The swallow was getting colder and he could not survive the winter. He don't have enough to eat, and whatever was there, whatever left portion he found outside the shop of baker, he used to eat that scrap. Whatever scrap he found outside the shop of baker, he used that. He used to eat that, and he used to keep himself warm. But his health was deteriorating. He was getting colder day by day, and he knew that he is not going to survive any longer. He will die very soon. He was not left with any energy, and then he said to himself, "Now I am going to die," and he was just left with only that much amount of energy which can let him to fly to the prince's shoulder. So he went to prince's shoulder and he said goodbye to him. So for that the prince said that I am glad, I am happy that at last you are going to Egypt. And he thanked him that you lived here for a long time. And the bird has asked the prince to let him kiss his hand. But the prince said, "Dear bird, I am happy that you are flying to Egypt. You have lived with me for a long time. And don't kiss my hand, you kiss my lips because I love you." "It is not to Egypt that I am going," said the swallow. "I am going to the house of death. Death is brother of sleep, is he not?" Then the bird said to Prince that I am not going to Egypt, but I am going to the house of death. I am going to die. I can't live any longer. And he said, the bird has referred death as the brother of sleep. And he asked to Prince that I am going to see the brother of sleep, that is a death. That is death. And he kissed the happy prince on the lips and fell down dead at his feet. At that moment a curious crack sounded inside the statue, and if something had broken, the fact is that the leaden heart had snapped right in two. It certainly was a dreadful hard frost. Early the next morning the mayor was walking in the square below in the company with the town councillors. As they passed the column, he looked up at the statue. Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks, he said. How shabby indeed, cried the town councillors, who always agreed with mayor, and they went up to look at it. The ruby has fallen out of his sword, his eyes are gone, and his golden no longer, said the mayor. In fact, he is little better than a beggar. Little better than a beggar, said the town councillors. So as the bird has informed it to Happy Prince that he can't survive any longer, he has grown quite colder and is going to die. So he asked the bird to kiss on his lips as he loved him. So as soon as the bird kissed the lips of Happy Prince, the bird fell down on the feet and was dead. So the moment that bird fell down on the feet of the Happy Prince and died, a strange sound came from inside of the statue. And what the sound it was? The heart of Happy Prince, which was made up of lead, it broke into two parts. And then next morning, a mayor was walking with the town councillors. He saw that statue and he said to his councillors that now the statue of this happy prince looked quite shabby, quite dirty. It looks ugly. It's no longer beautiful. Then he says that the ruby, the sapphire, the metals which was there, the gold leaf which was there on the body are gone. There's no more now. And now he compared the little prince, the happy prince, with the beggar. He says that now the happy prince look no longer like a prince, it looks like a beggar. And here is actually a dead bird at his feet, continued the mayor. We must really issue a proclamation that birds are not allowed to die here. And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion. So they pulled down the statue of Happy Prince as he is no longer beautiful, he is no longer useful, said the art professor at university. So later on, suggestion was given that Happy Prince has lost its charm, its beauty, it has grown uglier, and therefore it was decided to pull down the statue of Happy Prince. Then they melted the statue in furnace. What a strange thing, said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace, we must throw it away. So they threw it on the dust heap where the dead swallow was lying. So the statue was taken down, it was pulled down and it was taken in a furnace in the foundry where it was to be melted. But the heart, which was made up of lead, it did not melt, and therefore it was threw on the dust, on the heap of dust where that dead swallow was lying, the swallow which was there with the happy prince. Bring me the two most precious things in the city, said God to one of his angels, and the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bird. You have rightly chosen, said God, for in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing for evermore, and in my city of gold the happy prince shall praise me. So now the dead bird, the dead body of that swallow was thrown in the dust, and at the same place the heart of prince, which the worker at the furnace was not able to melt, they threw it on the heap of dust. So both of them was lying on the heap of dust. So even after their death, they were together. No matter wherever they are, they were lying on the heap of dust only, but they were together, and that is more important. And now God asked to one of his angels to bring two precious things from that city. That angel took that heart of that prince and that dead body to the God. When God saw that, he said it to his angel that yes, you have made a right decision, you have chosen a right thing. And from now, this bird is going to sing in my paradise forever. And now this happy prince will be with me and will always praise me. So this is all about this story. In the story we have seen that how a happy prince in the starting, during the gay day of life, during the happy period of his life, has never witnessed sorrow, misery of life. But when he came out in the street, in the form of a statue, he witnessed sorrow and misery, and then he started helping people. And due to that, his generous nature and due to his helping nature only, he was pulled down. As the beauty faded, he was pulled down from the pedestal and was melted in the furnace. But due to his generosity, due to his kind nature, due to his helping nature, they were given an immortal place in the garden of paradise by the God. So we should always be ready to help each other. We should help the person who is in need, as the happy prince did, even without bothering about his eyes. Thank you. This is all about this story. Thank you.